So let's start with that. Goethe founds morphology, which he thought of as a science. He has a paper on it where he says, I'm founding this science called morphology. So he coined the term, which means the study of forms, but not the random study of forms. It's the study of forms as organic wholes. They are holistically understood. Goethe begins with the whole and then moves from that to the parts. But he's mostly thinking of morphology as being applied to biological organisms. It can also be applied to art, as Spengler does, for instance, or history. He takes the method and applies it to historical, cultural forms. And Leo Frobenius then comes along as a German anthropologist and applies it to Aboriginal cultural forms. Then Joseph Campbell inherits all this and applies it to the study of mythological cultural forms, and I inherited it from him to use it as a general principle to study any kind of thing. Pretty much anything can be understood morphologically. So how do you understand a form morphologically? Let's start first with a concrete example. Let's take the horse. Now, the horse isn't just a random collection of parts. The mechanical approach is to understand something. You take parts and you put them together, as Bergson outlines this in Creative Evolution. So you move from the periphery to the center to build a machine. And that's how the hard sciences, physics and chemistry, want to try and understand living forms. Doesn't work. You're going to get nowhere with living forms with that approach. The approach moves the opposite. With living forms, they're wholes. And then you can move from center to periphery and deduce the parts from the whole. Let's take a horse, for example. A horse embodies an idea, and this is the other aspect of morphology, is that in a certain sense, it regards understanding the idea of a thing, platonically speaking. So Goethe, in a way, takes Plato's forms and embeds them in living things as entelechies, just as Aristotle does with entelechies. So living things are always in a state of becoming. You can never just capture them, dissect them, pull them apart. In that process, you're killing the organism and you're failing to understand it as an organism. You cannot apply reductionist, materialist ideas to living forms. They have a spiritual force inside them, an entelechy that is actualizing possibilities into actualities through the course of its life cycle. And these forms are always undergoing transformations. As Goethe says, formation, transformation, the eternal mind's eternal recreation. And a pun, of course, on recreation. Everything is always becoming something else. We are always dying and being reborn. We are always shedding snake skins. Every living thing does this. Everything that is alive has an outer covering for Goethe that is constantly being shed and gotten rid of. So you have to understand this. So let's take the idea of the horse then.